Welcome, traveler. Get ready to level up in fantasy football. Join Mike and Evan and a special guest every week as we break down some of the most important topics in fantasy football, the NFL, and help you win dynasty championships. Let's get into it.
Oh, man. We are back with another episode of the Fantasy Football RPG Podcast. We are covering the best division in football, the undisputed champs. I cannot wait to talk about Justin Fields.
All right, Mike, over under 4.5 times you're going to do that this episode. Come on, bro.
Oh, smash the over.
Hammer the over.
Smash it.
I'm here for it.
That's too easy. We are joined. First of all, I am Mike. You can find me on Twitter at FFMikeCash. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Evan. You can see him running the FFRPG pod account. We have two special guests, double for you, two on either side of the camera. We have in the blue corner, Luke Sawhook with a Steelers helmet in the background. Luke, how are you? What are you working on? Where can they find you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Absolutely just loving life today. I'm sipping on this raw meat over here. It's a delicious new flavor of Gamer Subs. Shout out to Meat Candy and the YouTuber, by the way. Doing fantastic, having a great night. Just got off work, showered, threw on the I Am Knuff hoodie, ready to talk ball with the fellas. You can find me on my Twitter account at Luke Sawhook. Just come on over. Come hang out. You'll find all the chaos from there. It's a good time always. Vibes are flowing. It's a good time to be alive.
Love to hear it. And then in the blue corner, we have Chris O'Brien. You can find him on Twitter at 17GamePace. Chris, we are so stoked to have you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Happy to be on and talking ball with you guys. You can find me on Twitter at 17GamePace, like you said.
Dude, is there a better thing to be doing on a Tuesday night than just hanging out with the boys talking football?
Nothing.
Yeah, This is what we need. All right, let's dive headfirst into our first segment.
And now it's time for news and notes.
Okay, listen, I know I'm a guest on the pod. I probably shouldn't say this. I'm not going to lie. I've never seen this show before. And I absolutely love these transitions, dude. This is electric. I love it. So,
yeah, they're awesome.
A little
the Goblins are our biggest fans.
Those Goblins? Okay, yeah, this is great. I love it. This is fantastic.
Goblins, Trolls, whatever you want to call them. All right, importantly, we need to get into, for the Steelers, the Cam Sutton signing was questionable to begin with. Now he is suspended for 8 games. Evan, does this move any fantasy football needle for you, or this is a depth corner that we already hate?
Yeah, no, don't care. Moving on.
Okay, that's enough of that. With that, I want to ask each of our guests. So in the blue corner, we have Luke Sawhook. Tell me, how many games do you think Rashee Rice is going to get suspended, knowing that Cam Sutton, questionable activity? What's Rashee Rice going to get?
Dude, I don't know why. The vibes are telling me this is going to be a light slap on the wrist. I don't know. It's just what I'm feeling. I'm feeling 2 games. I'm feeling 2 games, and I think that a suspension might come later in the season, if anything, because this process has been dragging for Rashee Rice. I actually picked him in a mock draft I did on a show with Chuck Bass earlier today. I was on This Guy Sucks with Chuck Bass. Great show, by the way. Terrible host.
Great show.
Actually, the worst host, probably.
Dude, he sucks.
He sucks. He's the worst. I picked Rice in the 8th round. I think he's good value, dude. I mean, obviously, how we treat him in redraft, I think he's good value. Obviously, that team added on Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy this offseason to legit wideout additions, but I think his role is carved out in this offense for what he serves as, the intermediate to underneath guy at the wideout position. He does a lot of the things that Travis Kelce does, but not Travis Kelce, as Mahomes said himself before, I believe. I like Rice a lot. I think that he's going to get a slap on the wrist, and I think he's going to end up being a value in redraft leagues. But I understand the risk, but I think all of his risk is honestly baked into his ADP at this point. So I'm pretty in on him. I'm not going to lie. I like Rice.
You're in all formats. We'd love to hear it. Chris, do you have differing opinions or same thing, slap on the wrist?
I think it'll be a little more than a slap on the wrist, probably closer to 6 games, I would guess. Not going to pretend like I'm a lawyer here or know anything, but
fair.
Intuition.
I actually am a lawyer, in case anyone was wondering. I am a lawyer, and it's going to be per source, it's 2 games.
Per source, in big quotes with a eyes going left emoji. But I can definitely see it being 6.
Let me format this quote like an MLF football tweet. Trending, : I don't know what else to say. Rashee Rice could, in all caps, be suspended for just 2 games as, quote, it wasn't that bad, per league source. Huge if true. Eyeball emoji.
Yep. And then adding Adam Schefter.
Yeah.
All right, cool. That is enough for She Rice. But speaking of bad driving on the road, Ollie Gordon, which if you haven't heard it yet, we already dove into the 2025 rookies. Go check out that episode. He got a DUI and was arrested for it. He's already come out publicly and apologized. He blew a .10. And then his coach came out and said, not that bad. I've done it thousands of times. Evan, does this move Ollie Gordon down your 2025 rookie rankings at all?
No, it happened while he's in college. He's a kid. Everybody's still learning. I don't mind at all. Give me the guys that have that past that can hopefully learn from it and move on.
Yep. Anybody have other opinions about Ollie Gordon, or just wild that the coach is coming out?
Coach, dude, does that coach have his job still?
Yeah, it's an Oklahoma State coach.
Yeah, Gundy.
God, I didn't know that. That's insane.
He is untouchable. But
He really
check
is.
out the 2025 preview. Check out the AFC West preview. Let's dive into our next segment.
Let's get into the meat and potatoes.
Okay, my only question with that transition is, why does he not have any meat? He just has potatoes.
Well, he has the meat in his hand. I'm pretty sure that's a turkey leg.
I thought it was like a wooden stick that he.
No, he's just eating it.
Hey, can you play it again?
Yeah.
So I can look at it again. Can you play it? Run that back.
Yeah, okay. This is important.
Let's get into the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, I guess that could be. I guess that could be.
That's 100. That's 100% a wooden club to go beat up something to have some meat, bro.
It could be a meat.
It's a fantasy leg.
It just
You don't know what kind of critters they got?
No, I have no idea. Yeah, you want to hit that Justin Fields drop again? By the way, it's been too long. We have to hit that over.
Well, I'll hit it every time that we mention Justin Fields for this.
Okay, word.
So, I mean, speaking of Justin Fields.
Feels good to hear that again.
And apologies if I'm a little choppy coming in and out of that. Running on hotel Wi-Fi, not working for me. But let's talk a little bit about fantasy football, which people came to listen to. So we're going to do a little segment, which thank you to Fantasy Calc for putting our little show on their site. We're going to go through some player comparisons using a 12-team Superflex PPR dynasty format. The idea here is that you are a fringe playoff team. Last year, you were on the upswing. You have a younger roster, so like you're hoping to sneak into the playoffs this year. With that context in mind, we're going to talk about specifically two big question marks. Well, one big question mark and one big value question mark. Deshaun Watson, he's a quarterback 22 on Fantasy Calc right now. He is at the going rate of about the 111. I'm going to go around starting with Evan. Evan, are you buying or selling at this price?
Yeah, I'm going to buy him at this price because of the fact that if there's any kind of upswing, people are going to start to buy back in to what Deshaun Watson was. They're going to start having that hopium. They're going to break out the pipe and just start smoking that hopium and just getting high on some Watson over here. They may invite him over to help him loosen up a little bit. Never know what might happen in those situations, but his stock will start going up, and I will sell him for more than that next offseason.
Evan, we are putting the content warning on this episode when we put it on YouTube and Spotify.
Yes.
You are a hazard. Luke, are you buying or selling at the 111 prices?
Oh, I'm selling. Quite frankly, I hate him on a personal level.
Reasonable.
Despise him. But all that aside for a moment here, I think he's not the same player anymore. Like what Evan just said there is, I think, the reason why you should sell him. I think if he wasn't the player, let me rewind. If he didn't do the things he did in Houston and we just had Deshaun Watson's Cleveland career so far, no one would care about this guy at all. It's just because of the career he had before he went to Cleveland. Ever since he got to Cleveland, he hasn't done anything of note for fantasy football value. He's been bad, quite frankly. What are we, 2 years removed now from the Houston Texans days? He's not getting any Texan year. You know what I mean? Like, sure, there is a world where he bounces back and returns to form, but I personally am not buying that. Give me the more valuable, in my opinion, safer asset in terms of holding its value in the first round draft pick.
Okay. It just takes 3 years to knock the rust off. It's whatever. Chris, are you buying or selling at 111 quarterback 22 prices?
I'll buy Deshaun Watson at QB 22. I think he's got enough rushing upside. Add in Jerry Jeudy in there. Not that Jerry Judy's going to move the needle that much, but just another weapon. Nick Chubb's probably going to start off the season off the field. So I'm buying the rushing upside. I think he can bounce back.
Okay.
But yeah,
I
you're
say
about that 3-year rust.
Chris, you worried about the 3-year rust at all?
No. Like you
Yeah.
said, Mike, it takes at least 3 years to knock the rust off.
At least 3. At least. I mean, guys,
Yeah.
listen, he last played a game as a Houston Texan in 2020. Okay? He last played a game for the Houston Texans in the Trump administration. Listen, it's 2024. And we're still talking about this guy like he's an elite quarterback. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing.
Pre-COVID.
Here. Pre-COVID was the last time Deshaun Watson was a good player. Okay? Since then, hasn't been very good at all. Here's his yards per attempt have gone down from 8.9 with his last year in Houston to 6.5 his last 2 years in Cleveland. That is not what you want.
Sure,
Just
but
knock
they
the
also
rust
passed
off.
the ball. They passed the ball a ton. In the 5 games that he played a full game last year, it was 3 of the 5 were top 12 finishes on the week on sheer volume alone.
Right. I would also like to point out to the jury that he has only played in 6 games in back-to-back seasons. And in those games, he has averaged a combined total of 14.4 fantasy points per game. But, hey, big news here. In those 12 games over the last 2 seasons, he still somehow managed to throw more passing touchdowns than my franchise quarterback, Kenny Pickett, in the last 2 seasons. Here we go, Steelers, huh? Here we go, Steelers.
But has he thrown more touchdowns than Justin Fields?
No, he hasn't. Justin Fields has been better, surprisingly.
I'm just saying. All right, that's enough Deshaun Watson talk for one lifetime. Let's talk a little bit about maybe the dynasty wide receiver one, another hot topic in the community right now, Ja'Marr Chase. He seems untouchable for a lot of people, but the 103 and 105 rookie fever might be hitting some people pretty hard. Evan, with the context of being an ascending team hoping to make the playoffs, would you rather have the 103 and 105, so like Malik Neighbors and Jaden Daniels, or Ja'Marr Chase?
Yeah, for me, especially being a Superflex league, assuming that I'm going to be able to take Ja'Marr Chase, be able to go get a Neighbors, and then at the deadline, if I really am a competitive team looking at that, 3-4 spot right there, I can be able to still flip Neighbors for a more production style wide receiver. So yeah, I would absolutely do that in a heartbeat.
You could see Neighbors just volume his way to the most disgusting 1,000-yard season we've ever seen. But Luke, Ja'Marr Chase, 103 or 105?
I'm in the camp of the the Ja'Marr Chase untouchables for the most part. I mean, this guy's you're gonna need to give me your firstborn son for Ja'Marr Chase at this point. Like he is absolutely You guys have sponsors? That's sick. I don't have sponsors.
Sponsored by W. Which PS? You were drinking an
email.
energy drink earlier. Use code FFRPG at checkout.
I wish
It's the same thing. You mix it in with some water, it's a good time.
Hey, shout out to those guys, I guess. Maybe sponsor me if you want. Love you. Anyways, I would rather have Ja'Marr Chase for sure. I mean, this is an elite producer. He's young. He's going to be fantastic. And yes, Rhett, this is where the cool kids chop it up. We're chopping it live on air for you, my guy. But yeah, Ja'Marr Chase all day long. Don't even think about it. I'm going to close my eyes and hit accepts like 19 million times. Thank you so much.
Very fair. Chris, any differing opinion? I guess we have 2, so I need you to be the tiebreaker.
I'm with Luke on this. I'm going with Ja'Marr Chase. Are we actually getting Neighbors and Daniels with the 103 and the 105?
Neighbors and Daniels, Neighbors and Bowers, Neighbors and May, like some combination of top 5 players.
If you can guarantee me Daniels and Neighbors, maybe, but I'm still probably going with Chase there.
Chase is so good, man. Like, think about it. Even if Jaden Daniels, let's say Jaden Daniels gives you QB 14 output this, next season, and Malik Neighbors becomes an eventual top 10 wide receiver, I still think I would rather have Ja'Marr Chase. Like, he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver, I would say comfortably for the next 5 years on paper and like in redraft leagues. Like, he's going to be stupid good for the foreseeable future and beyond. Like, he's like one of the safest dynasty assets you possibly can have, in my opinion. So I would keep him for no less than like the 101 and the 103. Like, I love Ja'Marr Chase.
Okay.
I'm a Steelers fan.
That's fair. Yeah. I also love Ja'Marr Chase, and I like bullying Evan, so this is good for me. I would take the Chase side as well. I just think he's that kind of player that you need to have 3 first, and I would take 103, 105. If you sprinkled the 109 on top, now I'm in. But at 103, 105, like, get lost. Hit my inbox another time. Let's move into some of the impact moves in the offseason and how to adjust fantasy football pieces there. So first up, we have the Baltimore Ravens. They added, I don't know if you guys have heard of him, Derrick Henry, pretty medium. They added Josh Jones at tackle. They traded their kick returner. Thanks for including that, Evan. They drafted Devontae Walker, who I don't care about and is bad. They added Rasheen Ali, who I
know you guys at home can't see these notes. This is the most thorough offseason moves notes I've ever seen in my life. Like, they have every poop the Ravens have taken this offseason on the dock. There's so many names in front of my face right now. Just for
this is what happens when you put an engineer in charge of putting together show notes. You get every little detail.
Evan is a smart guy, which is why we keep bringing him back. Departures, they lost Kevin Zeitler. They lost Odell Beckham. They lost Gus Edwards. If any of those move you, Zeitler might. They lost Devin Duvernay, another kick returner, RIP. Morgan Moses, Josh Simpson. The big takeaway here, they lost all of their running backs of note. They brought in Derrick Henry to eat everybody's lunch. And then they lost 3 starting offensive linemen. Evan, with those moves, are you worried about Derrick Henry continuing to be almost like a little inefficient? Like we've been talking about, like, man, can't wait to see him behind a good offensive line. And now we don't know, like, are the Ravens going to be a good offensive line, or is that a thing of the past?
I mean, the Ravens still have a solid offensive line. It's definitely not nearly the offensive line that they had last year. So let's definitely remember that. But Linderbaum is one of the best, if not the best, centers in the league right now.
Yep.
You still have Stanley at left tackle, which is an absolute just beast out there. You still have Lamar Jackson to be able to hold defenses, keep them accountable. So, yeah, I mean, efficiency-wise, he's still Derrick Henry. He's still an absolute dump truck to try and bring down. He's going to maul you. He probably does have a dump truck right there.
Has anyone raised your hand if anyone has seen a confirmed Derrick Henry dump truck? Because I have not. Nobody? Okay.
No, I think I've seen the quad pics. I haven't seen the dump truck. Let's
talk about this after the stream. After the stream's over, maybe we can do a screen sharing, like Google search session.
Yep. I'll put it in private mode. But yeah, Evan, I agree. I think Derrick Henry will continue to be at least like a reasonably efficient running back. Luke, how do you feel about his redraft price right now? So he's going off the board somewhere in the 2-3 turn, somewhere around like running back 9. Are you in at those prices?
I absolutely love it. Seriously love it. I think he should be at the very end of the first round, maybe even early second round. I love him this year. I think he's going to, like, if you woke, Mike, let me give you a scenario. If you woke up from a coma tomorrow and all of a sudden you wake up, it's April 23rd, 2025, and you open your fantasy app to see your auto draft team won a championship, and you look at your running back spot and Derrick Henry is there. And you're like, holy shit, Derrick Henry scored 21 touchdowns. Would you believe that? Because I think I would.
Yeah, I would believe it.
Like, Gus Edwards scored how many touchdowns last year? What, like 13?
13.
Like, Derrick Henry's going for at least 16 touchdowns next year. Like, you can book it. Like, I don't know if I can bet on that somewhere, but I will. Like, he's going to absolutely smash for the Ravens. Even if he doesn't have the most efficient year on the ground, I don't really care. They're going to pound the rock. It's Baltimore. They always do, right? I mean, they spread it around a lot more last year than in the years prior, but Derrick Henry's going to get his fair share of carries. He's going to get his touches. He's a grinder. We all know this. He's going to, he's going to feast at the goal line. Lamar Jackson doesn't score a ton of like 1-yard touchdowns. He scores those like 10+ yard rushing touchdowns a lot of the time. I think Henry's going to easily score 15+ tutties, and I like him over the likes of, I have him like in the same tier as Saquon personally. Like, I think he's that good of a pick this year. I think his ADP is super cheap, and I really like him in drafts.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Chris, I want to throw it over to you from a dynasty perspective. What would you be willing to buy Derrick Henry for if you're a competing team? You want a running back 2, running back 3, like you just want to beef up that room a little bit. What is the earliest pick you'd be willing to part with?
That is a good question. I was going to echo.
I'm putting you on the spot.
A lot of what Luke said, I agree with.
He's good.
Putting a pick to his name, I'd probably go all the way up to, what is he's 30? How many years of solid production do you guys think he has? Buy me some time
2.
here.
2
Yeah,
top 12 seasons.
I would say 2. Yeah.
That's kind of the window we're looking at in Dynasty, though, right? If he can give you 2 great years, I'll buy him for. I might even go all the way up to like the 108, 109. Is that crazy?
Dang.
I feel like you definitely can get him for cheaper than that. I feel like you probably could swing Henry for like an early second and like a fill-in player, a throw-in player. But I mean, I like your confidence in him, you know?
Yeah.
He's top.
I don't think you're getting.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't think you're getting an impact running back for your squads at the 108 or 1. Like Trey Benson and Jonathan Brooks, we love them for Dynasty. Neither of them are plug-and-play RB2s this year. Derrick Henry's a plug-and-play RB1 that you have to feel really good about. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I think he's still got juice, like you guys said. He was bottom 5 in yards before contact and then top 5 in yards after contact. Like, no matter what you think of the Ravens line at this point, even if it got worse, I feel like it's still going to be a massive upgrade over what he was working with in Tennessee. Still was top 10 in breakaway run rate. Like, I don't know. I think he's got. I don't think people realize how much juice he still has left.
That Tennessee offensive line, Swiss cheese, absolutely.
I'm so sorry, Evan. I'm so sorry.
They had me out there blocking last year.
Yeah, they called Evan and I to see if we were busy, but we were. So
and by the
doesn't
way,
work out.
DraftKings. By the way, on DraftKings, 10.5 rushing touchdowns for Derrick Henry.
What?
There you go.
What are the odds on that?
Go make some bets, Luke.
What are the odds on that?
Minus 110.
Oh, minus 110.
Minus 110.
Dude, I might put my life savings on that line, boys. Might do it.
That's reasonable.
Let's rip it live.
All right. I want to talk about the backup running backs. So Gus Edwards leaves. J.K. Dobbins leaves. Now we have Justice Hill, who refuses to take any kind of workload. We have Keaton Mitchell, who looked electric before the gruesome knee injury. And then they go ahead and they get Rasheen Ali behind them. Like, if Derrick Henry goes down, I expect this to move into more of like a committee backfield where it's going to be heartbreaking to know who to start week in and week out. Does anybody feel differently? Like, this is the clear-cut handcuff. I need to go get this guy.
I mean, I think if you're looking for upside, I like Keaton Mitchell. I think the other guys you're not going to really get any juice from to be enough. I think the only guy who has potential to do it is Mitchell. So when you're swinging for upside, I'm going to go with Mitchell.
Okay. That makes sense. Chris, any differing thoughts? Otherwise, we're going to talk about Lamar Jackson.
No, from a redraft perspective, I don't think any of them are really giving you value this year. I'd probably take a shot on Keaton Mitchell in Dynasty for when Derrick Henry inevitably hits that age cliff.
Excuse me. Before we move on, sorry, Mike. One very interesting note in the touchdown market. I'm on DraftKings right now. I wasn't lying. What you said, the over/under is 10.5 at minus 110. Derrick Henry is the number 2 odds-on favorite to lead the league in rushing touchdowns, just behind Christian McCaffrey at plus 650, with McCaffrey being plus 600. It's like Vegas knows, like, he's going to score a lot of rushing tuds. So it's pretty interesting that line's only 10.5, in my opinion.
Yeah. Weird to see somebody with the second most odds have an over/under that feels extremely, extremely attainable. All right, let's talk about Lamar Jackson. He's going off the board in redraft as the QB4 this year. He finished last year as the QB4. Are we comfortable with him as the QB4 and like you're just going to plug and play him and he's going to be the QB4 again? Or do we have like worries, concerns, excitement? Does he move into the QB1 territory? How do we feel about Lamar Jackson? Luke, I'll throw it over to you.
I mean, it's Lamar Jackson. You know what you're getting, right? Like, I am totally fine taking him at QB4. I think he's in a tier with me for guys like Anthony Richardson this year. But I like a lot of Lamar Jackson in fantasy. You know what I mean? He's not the most consistent performer on a week-to-week basis, in my opinion, but he has those huge blow-up games that just completely win your week. So especially with his ADP, I've done some mock drafts. I like where he's going. I'm pretty comfortable with that draft spot. I think you can argue that he goes around anywhere from that QB3 to QB6 range in rankings, but I have him in that tier. Pretty solid.
Yeah. I feel pretty comfortable this year. Like, normally we talk about waiting on quarterback. Like, this could actually be a year where you just really wait on quarterback. You either get the top of the top 2 between Allen and Hurts, you wait and get the top 6 between Lamar, Burrow, Stroud, Richardson, or you just completely punt on it. And like, you can go get Jaden Daniels for free. So there's lots of things to like in the quarterback market and redraft right now. So,
agreed.
Chris, any thoughts on Lamar Jackson at QB4 prices? Just good vibes all around?
QB4, I'm okay with, but in the 4th round, I think that's a bit early. I know Luke mentioned the inconsistencies like week to week. I was looking at that actually. I put out a post on Twitter today of some guys I'm fading at their current price, and Lamar was one of those guys in the 4th. I just can't justify a guy that's going to disappear and be like, it's not like he's giving you like QB 12 type numbers. It's like QB 15 or worse when he disappears. And it's just happening too often year over year.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So if you want to ride the roller coaster, go get Lamar Jackson. If you want to save for floor or maybe just punt on the position and ride a different roller coaster, I completely get it. Let's talk about the last player that we need to worry about for the Baltimore Ravens, Zay Flowers. I don't think anybody needs to talk about Mark Andrews. He's stud. You start him. You love him. Everything's good. Zay Flowers in the dynasty market is all over the place right now. He's currently the wide receiver 22, but like there's people that think that he's going to jump into top 12. There's people that think that he's going to fall outside the top 30. Luke, give me a case to love Zay Flowers.
I pitch to love him. Man, he's a really talented player with a great quarterback. You know, I think that's the most important thing. I mean, he was a rookie last season. We saw what he was capable of doing. He's a really good player. I think the biggest thing for me is Baltimore. Can they make that elite wide receiver happen? We haven't seen it with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, really. You know, we've seen it with Mark Andrews. We've seen great seasons for running backs in Baltimore. I just want to see if he can give a good wide receiver season in Baltimore. The scheme changed last year. I think Flowers definitely has the potential to have some big weeks. I see him as a wide receiver 2 long term. I think his dynasty price is honestly pretty accurate. That wide receiver 22 range. I think at the end of the season, I will predict his price increases a bit. I think at the end of the season, we'll see his price sitting at a wide receiver 18. That's my prediction.
Okay, that makes sense. Chris, I would love for you to give me a case against him, or if you don't want to, give me another case for him, and then I'll roast him.
I can give you the case against him. When he was on the field with Mark Andrews last year, he was not seeing the same target share. I think it was Mark Andrews missed the beginning of last year, right? What was it? Was it just week 1 or was
at
it
the
more
end?
than that? What's that?
I thought it was just a little bit at the beginning. I thought it was just a little bit at the beginning, and then the hip dropped out.
Anyway, yeah. The target share wasn't the same with Mark Andrews on the field. Zay Flowers is the guy I have trouble with. I feel like he's so talented. Like we saw in the AFC Championship game what he can do if he's used downfield a little bit more too. But he was kind of a low ADOT and just a massive target guy when Mark Andrews wasn't on the field. So I guess that would be the case against him, is he's just relying on that large volume that won't be there when Mark Andrews is playing and healthy.
That's fair. Great case against. Evan, I'm so glad to have you back. Let's move on to the Cleveland Browns. Walk us through the additions and departures. I know they lost their elite quarterback.
Yeah, so for the Browns, we obviously got the Jerry Jeudy trade right there, big time trade in the offseason. You're getting famous Jameis. You know, everybody loves some Jameis Winston. They're getting former Pro Bowl quarterback Tyler Huntley. Oh man, what a signing right there. Nyheim Hines finally returns. Hopefully he's going to be healthy. Could actually be a really good kick returner if you're in any kick return leagues. So that could be a lot of fun.
Wait, did you say kick returner?
Kick returner Fields, baby.
That's a self-burn from the Madden trailer.
Oh, man. Okay, Mike. Yeah. So we have all those additions. Jamari Thrash. I don't know if you watched too much Louisville football this past season, but Louisville was finally somewhat decent at football. So Jamari Thrash was the top guy for that offense. So he was fun to watch in college. And then the sad departure of King Joe Flacco. You know, he was Cleveland royalty for a season, and now they're moving on. Now they're moving on. Also, a little bit of offensive line depth, so that's something to note. They should be healthier on the offensive line, so that hopefully we'll be able to cover that up. PJ Walker, which if I'm remembering correctly, former XFL quarterback, PJ Walker. So always fun to bring that up. And then Harrison Bryant, who nobody cares about. So why am I even really bringing him up?
Whoa. That's a former best tight end in college football, Harrison Bryant. Put some respect on his name.
Boys,
Okay.
hey, breaking news. I don't know if this is a new feature on StreamYard. It just popped up and said broadcast this live to your audience. So we're live on my Twitter now, too. I don't know what's going on, but we're here and we're doing it. So
That's important. But if you're listening from someone's Twitter, come over to YouTube, FFRPG Pod. Hang out with us. All right,
Awesome.
Evan, what else you got? I mean, really, they lost offensive line depth, their elite quarterbacks, and the best tight end in college football 5 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a ton to say. We're kind of moving on. Hopefully, the Browns can once again be able to continue their playoff ways. It's been tough seasons in Cleveland. What?
Continue. We're not rooting for the Browns. We're rooting for fantasy
I'm rooting
football
for the Browns. I'm rooting for the Browns
because
because they will beat your Steelers.
All right, Evan,
No,
that's
they
enough.
won't, dude. No, they won't.
There are 6 teams that have won the AFC North more recently than the Browns. There's only 4 teams in a division. The Houston Oilers have won the AFC North.
One of these days, it will be their time to shine.
The Jacksonville Jaguars have won the AFC North.
Do not leave a Brown in the toilet, okay?
Evan, your Tennessee Titans have won the AFC North more recently than the Cleveland Browns.
Hey, I have no idea why I have control over this, but I'm trying to share my screen apparently. So please, whoever has control to put that on screen, please share it for a moment. This is very important.
Come on, Mike.
Mike, this is very important. Put it on the screen.
And my laptop exploded trying to do that.
So
there we go.
Show that the Cleveland Browns are 5-14-1 against the Steelers over the last 10 years. Thank you so much for your time. That's all.
A very important note. But let's dive into the fantasy football impact of some of these things. Jerry Jeudy, look, if we use his career target share, we use 80% of what Deshaun Watson used to be, you're looking at a wide receiver 3. But because he's been burned by people so many times in the past, like we're drafting him as outside the top 40 wide receivers. Evan, is there a bounce back opportunity for Jerry Jeudy with a change of scenery, or are you just ignoring him and picking him up on waiver wires if he proves wrong?
Considering that they are still going to have a strong run game, considering that Njoku's probably the number 2 target, which means he's probably the 3rd read in the offense, considering he's probably going to get injured for at least half a season like he always does, or if he's not injured, then he'll just kind of be limping through practice. No, Jerry Jeudy sucks. Move on.
Okay.
I was so excited when
I
was so excited when he was at Bama and he was coming out, and then I just got burned. And then I got my hope back up. And then I got burned again. And then I got my hope back up. And then I got burned again. I don't know how much more Jerry Jeudy can burn me. So at this point, I'm basically just that bread that you just leave in the oven and just forget that it's there until the smoke alarm's going off.
Word.
Rude.
I agree. Jerry Judy's a Jag.
Yeah, he's a Jag. It's cooked. It's cooked.
Very valid
2
point.
years.
He's probably going to be hurt.
2 years ago, he's the wide receiver 21. We're just throwing him in the garbage.
And 4 years ago, the quarterback was relevant.
Oof. Well, all right, that's enough Jerry Jeudy talk. Let's talk about Amari Cooper, who is perpetually undervalued and then continues to put up wide receiver 1 or 2 seasons. Do we think the Watson to Cooper connection was actually extremely viable for fantasy football? We were looking at a wide receiver 1 pace. Do we think that's a real thing, or like small sample, throw it out the window, Amari Cooper's being drafted in the right place? Outside, I think he's the wide receiver 31 right now.
Real thing. It's real. Amari Cooper's a stud. Most underappreciated wide receiver in the league, in my opinion. He's a great player. I think he's going to make it work and give us another year of great production.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, I'm all in at cost. I know you mentioned the pace with Deshaun Watson. I think it was 1,600 plus yards. It was a 5-game sample, so not that. I mean, obviously it's small, but we've used smaller samples to justify players. Set career highs each of the last 2 years with the Browns, as far as touchdowns last year and then yards this year in 15 games. So I think he's still got juice. I think he's super underrated and a great value this year.
Yeah, he was.
It's not like he's Keenan Allen.
5% below his career reception percentage last year. You add that 5% to more receptions, take his ADOT, you're bumping him up even further. Yeah, all in. Come on. Let's go, Mike.
Yeah, it's not like he's – no, I'm in as well. I think it's ridiculous.
You want to buy him too. I know.
We're all in. So, okay, Go buy Amari Cooper in all formats. I thought somebody else was about to say something. All right. Let's talk about David Njoku, tight end, I think 11 right now in ADP, which doesn't make any sense to me. Evan, how do you feel about David Njoku? I'll make it easy. Just give me your vibes.
Ever since he got burned, he's come out a new man.
That's wild.
That's a crazy thing to say, and that's okay. I think we all agree, though, David Njoku, probably the second option in the offense. Does anybody disagree?
Nope, I love him.
Nope.
All right, sweet. And last but not least on the Browns, let's talk about the running back room real quick. Nick Chubb coming off of a horrific injury. Jerome Ford coming off of 11.1 points per game in half PPR. And Donta Foreman coming off of being Donta Foreman. How would you rank those three running backs in redraft this year? Chris, we'll start with you to mix it up.
Whoa, throwing a curveball.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Juicy here.
Again, not a lawyer, not a doctor, not sure where Nick Chubb's at with his recovery. Obviously, we'll get more information as we get closer to the season. But I don't really find myself drafting any of them. Jerome Ford was good for fantasy last year, but he also kind of sucked for real life. Like, they gave him a ton of targets, but he also had a ton of drops. He had some, I feel like an odd amount of receiving touchdowns. Not sure the exact number, but I think they'll work Foreman in there with Ford for the time that Chubb does miss, if he does miss any time, assuming he does. So I don't really find myself drafting any of the three, to be honest. If I were to rank them, I'd probably say Ford, Chubb, Foreman.
Okay. That makes sense. Luke, give me your pitch.
No, thank you. No, thank you. And please, no, thank you.
Okay. Evan, are you drafting any of them?
Are we saying this is like a underdog situation, or is this like a
no? You have to manage the league.
I can manage
whatever your fantasy is, Evan.
Fantastic. I mean, all of it, any of it. So yes, Jerome Ford, I will draft in a managed league because I know that I can get the first 6 weeks out of him, and it's the same thing with Chuba Hubbard. I know that I can get the first 6 weeks out of him. I can go heavy on wide receiver. I can get an early quarterback as well, and I can just allocate things to be able to go as injuries start happening at running back as the season starts to progress. I can find those waiver wire darlings and be able to just patchwork together something with one stud hero running back.
Okay. Gross. I hate all of them. I won't be touching them. In underdog, I am drafting a couple of them just because the spike weeks are juicy, but I just don't see a moment where I'm going to be like, yes, I know I need to start Jerome Ford this week. Yes, I know I need to start Donta Foreman. Yes, I feel good about Nick Chubb's knee at 29 years old. He's about to turn 30 or 28, about to turn 29. Don't correct me on that. Don't at me. Either way, I'm concerned. Let's move on to the best team in the AFC North, undisputed, clear as day, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have added Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited. They have added
Justin Fields.
That just makes me so happy every time. They've added the best kick returner in the league outside of Justin Fields and Cordero Patterson. They've added Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins, which makes me want to throw up in my mouth. Also Scotty Miller, which makes me want to throw up in my mouth. They added a bunch of running backs, but really the key here, they bolstered the offensive line. They drafted Roman Wilson to be the presumed wide receiver 2. As of right now, Van Jefferson's in the pole position to be the wide receiver 2. There's not a lot of fantasy points to go around at the wide receiver 2 position in Pittsburgh. They lost Deontay Johnson, who is perpetually slept on. They added by subtraction by losing Kenny Pickett, who they traded Kenny Pickett for more than they had to give up to get Justin Fields. Hit the over now. And then they also lost Chuks Okorafor, Mason Cole, basically a couple of offensive linemen, a couple of depth wide receivers, and they replaced Matt Canada, the man who shall not be named, with Arthur Smith, the other man who should not be named. Listen, let's talk about this real quick. Wide receivers, it's George Pickens and everybody else. Does anybody disagree with that?
I really like Roman Wilson as a deep sleeper. I really like him. He's going to be on a lot of benches in my fantasy leagues, I think, this season. He's a pretty pro-ready player, good route runner. I think he's going to be trying to replace Deontay Johnson. I think he's going to be super solid, especially in Dynasty Fantasy Football in terms of his value going up. It's a great time to buy. And I also like Pat Freiermuth. I think he's a good value. I think he's a guy people that's kind of fallen off their radar. He had a pretty injured season last year. He's dealing with terrible quarterback play in Pittsburgh, too. I think while Russell Wilson and Fields are not great, I think they're both going to be a lot more serviceable than Kenny Pickett was. And I think Freiermuth definitely can step up and earn some more targets with the departure of Deontay Johnson.
Yep. I love the Freiermuth call out. Chris, when we talk about like sifting through the target share and how that's going to work here, George Pickens, second on the team in targets. Pat Freiermuth?
Yes, I think Pat Freiermuth is second. We saw – I'm not sure. What was his – I know he had a big year 2 years ago. I'm not sure what his target share looked like that year, but I'm pretty sure he saw a good amount.
17 or 18%?
Solid. I think
that'll work.
I think Roman Wilson will be 2B, though. I agree with Luke. He could have some sneaky value, but obviously I'm all over Pickens just like everyone else is.
All right. Love it. People hear me run my mouth about Pickens enough, so I will stay off my soapbox for now. Let's talk a little bit about the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterbacks. Both of them are going outside the top 24 quarterbacks. Both of them have been consistent top 24 quarterbacks in fantasy. Evan, are you drafting either of them in one quarterback leagues or sticking to them for just Superflex?
If you give me a unmanaged team, then I will take a very, very late Justin Fields as a QB3, hoping that there's a couple spike weeks that I can get out of him. Because honestly, let's be real, if you're looking at him at 15, round 15 on, the odds of actually getting usable spike weeks out of those guys, multiple usable spike weeks. And if Fields wins the job, he has the rushing upside. We've always known he has the rushing upside. He just needs to figure out how to throw a football, and then he could actually be an NFL quarterback.
Huge if true. Yeah, huge if true.
Well, if there's an OC that's going to unlock that, I'm sure it's Arthur Smith. Any other Pittsburgh Steelers thoughts? It's pretty clear. You're going to draft George Pickens. You're going to throw darts at the quarterback room. You're going to take Freiermuth if all else fails. And the running backs, both of them have RB2 capabilities. We just have to see what that split kind of looks like. But they could just continue to eat into each other's work and just limit the upside, but keep pretty safe floors. Does anybody feel differently about a Steelers piece, or do you want to move on to the Bengals?
Let's cruise on over to that team in Cincinnati.
Let's move on to the Bengals. All right, so they added Zach Moss, Trent Brown, Mike Gesicki. They franchise tagged T. Higgins to keep him around. They drafted Amarius Mims, the biggest man that has ever lived. They drafted Jermaine Burton, which made me sick to my stomach because I love him. Drafted Derek Hall, made me sick to my stomach because I love him. And then they drafted Matt Lee as a depth center, maybe a starter. They lost Joe Mixon, who has plotted his way to 1,000 yards a couple of times. They lost Tyler Boyd, who went to Tennessee so he can rot. They lost Irv Smith, which is just heartbreaking to see. And then they changed their OC, but they kept most of the same staff around to try and keep the system in place. Let's talk a little bit about the running back room to start. Everybody is hot and bothered by Chase Brown in Dynasty. We just think he's explosive. We think he's fun. We think he's the player that we want. But Zach Moss is going in front of him in a couple of places, namely drafters. Do we think that Zach Moss is the guy, or do we think that Chase Brown is the guy? Evan, we'll start with you.
I'm going to go with 60-40 if we're looking at just between the two of them for Moss. He carried the workload last year, and he showed that he can continue to do it. And Brown just hasn't shown that he can carry it.
That's fair. Luke, different thoughts?
It's Moss's job to lose, but I do think that Zach Moss is going to have a down year. I think that he's not as good as people think he is. I think he was in a fantastic situation last year in Indy where they know how to use their running backs. It's a great offensive line. They know how to get the most out of their players. We all saw Zach Moss before he went to Indy. He's not a special player at all. He's getting older, not younger. He's a veteran running back who has had a mediocre career outside of last season. It's not like a wide receiver, guys. Running backs don't break out late in their career. I don't really understand the hype for Moss. I mean, I get it. He's going to get a lot of touches in a good offense. I don't hate him at all in fantasy, especially redraft. But long term, I think Chase Brown has the potential you're looking for here. I think super late in drafts. He's a great dart throw to keep on your bench and see how things shake out. I like Brown.
Okay. Chris, what about you?
I'm big on Zach Moss. I think he's a great pass blocker, something that Chase Brown doesn't do, and something that the Bengals are definitely going to value with all of the injuries to Burrow thus far. It's definitely a slippery slope betting on a role, though, rather than a talent with a guy like Zach Moss, who we haven't seen do much, like Luke was just saying. But then again, you don't always see guys kind of break out like he did last year. I know it's a smaller sample, but I just think his pass blocking is going to have him on the field. He'll have goal line opportunities. He'll have pass catching. I think it'll probably be 65-35 Moss.
We could see him just plod his way to like an RB25 finish, which would be disgusting to watch. Wide receivers, that's pretty easy. You're going to draft Higgins. You're going to draft Jamar Chase. I want to talk about Jermaine Burton, who, like, pretty highly touted prospect. He was it Evan? Was he a 4 or a 5-star?
Burton should have been a 4.
Okay. Hung out in Georgia for a little bit. Then he went to Alabama. He had a little stop there in between at some point. But anyway, floated around the college football scene, but continued to be an elite target earner wherever he went, continued to be a big play threat wherever he went. It's just really unfortunate that Joe Milton like throws like we do. So it was tough to see. It's just Joe Milton's way faster than we are, which is why he is who he is. So do we think that there's any like juice to be squeezed out of the wide receiver 3 option here? Or do we think that Jermaine Burton like is not Tyler Boyd? It's going to be more of a committee at the wide receiver 3 position. Evan, what do you think?
Yeah, from a dynasty perspective, there's a little bit of juice to be squeezed here. Dynasty-wise, you're looking at most likely ownership already saying that they really don't want to pay T. So most likely ending up moving on from T coming next offseason, especially knowing the situations that they're in. So you could have a wide receiver 2 on the Bengals, which has an elite QB. Well, maybe not elite, Mike. I know you have some good Twitter trolls on that. And then an elite wide receiver 1 in Chase already on that team to be able to pull coverages away from him. So he should have opportunity, especially in the future. I think this season, I wouldn't have super high hopes for him, though.
Yeah, that's fair. I love him in best ball because his skill set is getting open deep and then running with it afterwards. I think in managed leagues, it could turn into a little bit of a heartbreak. Like you start him, he gives you 0. It could be just Gabe Davis, but with weirder spike weeks. Luke, how do you feel from a redraft perspective with Jermaine Burton? Is he somebody you're targeting really, really late in your drafts, or is he kind of off your board in a managed league?
I mean, I think he's a really, really late pick. I don't really have that much interest in him this year. I think it's too early to tell, though. I think I need to see preseason and training camp for a lot of these rookies, especially the mid-round wide receivers. But I think he's definitely a name to monitor as we move forward for sure. I just want to give a quick shout, though. I think T. Higgins is legit the best value in fantasy football drafts. He left a bad taste in manager's mouth last year due to his injuries and just inconsistency overall. But T. Higgins is a fantastic player. He's with Joe Burrow long-term alongside Jamar Chase. Not long-term, but this season, right? Redraft, okay? Him, Jamar, and Burrow, fantastic trio. We all know what they're capable of doing. T. Higgins is the guy who was drafted as a top 20 wide receiver, I think, last season. I think he's capable of being that guy again. He's going in like the 5th round. I think he's a fantastic value. I really like T. Higgins this year.
Yeah, that makes sense. Chris, focus back on Jermaine Burton. Are you like hot and bothered, or just he's fine?
No, I have a pretty similar take as you, where he'll have those spike weeks, but it's gonna be hard to predict. Probably better in a best ball setting. I mean, we have seen T. Higgins go down year after year, so if that does happen, maybe we see like 3 weeks of consistency from him while T. Higgins is nursing his hamstring injury and then he comes back. But outside of that, probably not much consistency.
That's fair. All right. We've talked about running backs. We talked about wide receivers. Joe Burrow doesn't target tight ends. Joe Burrow, quarterback, I think he's 6 off the board, 7, somewhere around there in redraft right now. I will not be drafting any Joe Burrow at quarterback 7 prices, but I would love to hear if somebody will be.
Sorry.
Okay.
I ended up taking him in a mock draft today with Chuck Bass, the worst host of all time on podcasts. He fell right in my lap. He slipped like 2 rounds past ADP, and I took him. I think that's pretty much the only scenario where I would take him. He's just going too early in ADP for me. I don't really have a problem with the QB7 price tag. I think that tier he's in, it makes sense. I think he's just simply going off the board too early for my liking with the other players that are available. But I think he's a good player. I think he's going to have a good season. It's just a matter of the health for Burrow, and if he can stay healthy, he's going to have a top 10 fantasy year, like no doubt to me.
Yeah. When we look at his career numbers, he's always stayed above the league average in touchdown percentage. Like it's normally 4.5%. He just consistently is putting out 6.5, 6.9, like somewhere around there. So it's hard to bet against him as a pocket passer. It's just he provides almost zero rushing floor to keep you safe when he has a bad passing output, which is going to happen when he's playing the Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Cleveland Browns 6 games a year. Before we get into, like, we're going to go through betting lines. We're going to talk about each of the teams, their over-unders, and how we feel about them. I want to give you guys a chance to tell people where to find you one more time. So if people are still listening, shout out your stuff, shout out what you're working on. Luke, we'll start with you.
Hey, it's me, the jackass who's hijacked this show, basically. Follow me on Twitter, at Luke Sawhook. Come on over. It's good vibes, positive energy, fantasy football memes. A lot of WWE content recently for some reason. I don't really know why it's been happening, but it's been happening. And just good overall energy. So come hang out as fantasy football season nears. I'll be giving a lot of my takes and opinions and advice. I also run a giant fantasy football tournament called the Sawhook Showdown that I'll be doing more leagues for this year. So come check that out. It's always a lot of fun. Just if you want a positive, fun fantasy football account to follow, that's always given out. So what I think is good opinions and advice, drop me a follow. I appreciate you. Thank you.
You should let us give out a entry to the Color League this year, or one of the food leagues or something. But Chris, sweet. Chris, what are you working on? Where can they find you? I love your data deep dives.
Thank you. First of all, appreciate the compliments, the kind words there. You can find me at 17 Game Pace on Twitter. I post threads every day. Some people hate threads, some people like them. So if they're your thing, come on over. I also do a little bit of writing at Player Profiler, working on some stuff for the draft kit that they release. So excited to see the product of that. And then currently I don't do much video stuff, but trying to get into a little bit of short form video content on YouTube. And that is also at 17 Game Pace, but not much out there quite yet.
Nice. Well, after they're done listening to this, they can hop over to your show and subscribe to that at 17 Game Pace. If you're still listening right now, like, subscribe, share with a friend, show it to your mom. We love moms around here, but not like Zach Wilson does. So let's talk about some betting lines. The Baltimore Ravens, they were 13-4. This year, their betting line is at 10.5. Evan, over, under, or avoid?
That's an avoid line for me. It's right on the mark for me. I have them in a 10 with 2 toss-up games. So, yeah, avoid for me.
Okay. Luke, over, under, or avoid?
Man, I think I like the over. I like just at 11 wins, but the line is minus 135 at over a 10.5, which isn't the best odds. I don't know if I would bet that line, but I do think I will take the over there.
Okay. And Chris, last but not least.
I'm probably just going to avoid. I feel like betting on any over-under or any over for wins for an AFC North team is just a slippery slope with how good the division is. I don't hate the line, but I'm just not going to bet. I'm not going to bet on the over for any of these teams.
That's fair. I am definitely avoiding this one because it's 10.5. If I go over and they get it, I'm going to be mad. So I don't want to win money that way. So I'm going to avoid it. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns. Last year, they were 11-6, starting anybody they could find at quarterback. This year, they're at 8.5 with Deshaun Watson. So, like, say what you will about Watson there. Evan, over, under, or avoid?
Yeah, I'll take a chance on the over here. The defense is still elite at home, absolutely elite. One of the best defenses in the league at home. On the road, completely different, Jekyll and Hyde type of defense. But hopefully the offense can be able to carry them when they're on the road to be able to keep games close. And they can absolutely just pound the ball down people's throats at home.
That's fair. Luke, what about you?
Man, it's tough. I think I'm going to go the over as well. I think I'll side with Evan. Elite defense. I think that the offense doesn't have to be very good for this team to win a lot of games. I'm going to take the over.
That's fair. And last but not least, Chris.
I'll take the over. I'll just go back on everything I just said about betting any over on any team in this division. You guys convinced me the defense is elite. 9 wins. I can get behind that.
Exactly.
Yeah. this is a bad show because we're all agreeing. I'm also going to go over. Like, elite defense, if Watson is even okay, they could win 10 games. If Watson is bad, they're still going to win 9. I hate to say that about the Browns, but it's a new era for them. Pittsburgh Steelers, last year they were 10-7 with Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph taking turns at quarterback. Evan, over, under, 8.5.
I'm staying so far away from this line because I know Tomlin is the king of not having losing seasons. But, I mean, as much as it hurts you to probably admit, Mike, they are probably the worst team in this division.
They might be the worst team in Madden on paper, roster build, whatever. I don't think they finished last.
Okay.
Luke, what about you?
Dude, it's so hard. On paper, I have my Steelers in last place, man. It's tough. This is a really hard division. And the Steelers' schedule, I don't know if you guys have seen it. It is fucking hard. Sorry for swearing there, but it's hard.
It's all right. Evan's already made drug ups.
That's fine. Yeah, the Steelers' schedule is very difficult. And this team has a lot of holes on the defensive side of the ball in the secondary. I think strong safety is going to be a concern. I think corner outside of Joey Porter Jr. is going to be a big concern this year. Our corners are paper thin. And going against this division with, guys like Flowers and Higgins and Chase and Amari Cooper, that's going to be a problem. I think that overall the Steelers will win at least 7 games, but that line of 8.5 is perfect. I think that it's exactly where I'm at with them this year. Man, it's tough. I think I would avoid this line, but for the sake of argument for the show, I'm going to say over for shits and gigs for riding the Black Magic Mike Tomlin train, because I don't know how he does it every year. It seriously is Black Magic. I don't get it, but he finds a way somehow. It's so weird, right? Because they've had such bad quarterback play and have managed to put together winning seasons, right?
Yep.
But we have an upgraded quarterback this year, right? It still feels bad on paper compared to a lot of these teams we're playing. The Steelers are weirdly good in division. They were 5-1 in the North last year, which is very impressive. Best record in the North. Outside of the North, we always struggle with out of division opponents. It's so hard to predict. I think right now, off the top of my head, I think the Steelers are probably going to split the North. Let's say split the North 3-3, right? I feel like that's fair. Outside of that, I don't feel very good about our chances out of division. I think we're looking at a below 500 season for the first time in Mike Tomlin's tenure. I'm going to predict 7-10 as the record, but for shits and gigs, I'm going to take the over on this line for Black to have a Mike Tomlin Black Magic.
That's fair.
I'll
Logic under, line. Black Magic over. Chris, what you got?
I'll avoid this line going back to what I was talking about with the Ravens. Just tough division. I agree, massive quarterback upgrade, but I'll shoot it over to you, Mike, because I know you'll probably have a lot more to say about the Steelers than myself.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going over at 8.5 wins. Let me talk you through the schedule. Falcons win. Broncos win. Chargers win. Colts win. Cowboys win. Raiders win. Giants win. Commanders win. Ravens loss. Browns loss. Bengals loss. They just have to win 2 of their last 10 games to hit 9 wins. But that's the thing, is the back half of the season is disgusting. It's the beginning feels better. So if the Steelers ride the hot hand early and get to 6 wins, like that is a very attainable thing to do. I know you guys are laughing at me because I just rattled those off and said they were wins. But there is a world where the Pittsburgh Steelers are 6-0, and then they go to the Jets and have a rude awakening back to reality. I think football analysis, I would avoid this line. Steelers fan, I'm taking the over and you can't stop me. But let's finish it out with the Cincinnati Bengals. AFC North last place Cincinnati Bengals. Evan, last year they were 9-8. This year they are 10.5. Over, under, or avoid? Under.
I feel very vehemently safe here with saying under. 10.5. It's not going to happen. You look at the offensive line, and it is an offensive line that is struggling, to say the least. They have 1 wide receiver, with T. Higgins being hopefully a second wide receiver for them. They have Hendrickson on defense, and that is pretty much it of what they have on defense.
Whoa. Eli Apple.
Maybe. Oh, yes. Eli Apple, I'm pretty sure, plays for the other team whenever he plays defense because all he does is try and help them score points.
Someone needs to check his FanDuel account.
Right, which I don't even know if Eli Apple's still on the Bengals anymore.
Good meme, though.
But yeah, so yeah, I think it's going to be under. I think it's going to be a 7-8 win season. So I think it's going to be significantly under. And with the over 10.5 being the minus money, I'll take the plus money going under 10.5.
All right. Luke, last chance to make fun of a rival. Over under 10.5.
Oh, buddy. It's weird because on paper, I think the Bengals get there with the over. But they've had this weird curse every season to start off where they put themselves in this really crazy hole for some reason. The Bengals schedule is also a lot easier than ours, which is annoying. Man, I'm going to take the over. Unfortunately, I'm not going to make fun of them. So sorry.
You make me sad. Chris, bully the Bengals, please.
I'll go just under. I have a little bit more faith in Evan, but I think they have too many holes. I think they're probably a 9 or 10 win team. That's a high line. 10.5. Again, this division is so good. That's just a crazy line for who they have to play twice a year.
Mm-hmm. The 10.5 line is because Joe Burrow has cool hair. You cannot convince me otherwise. So it's too high. I'm going under. If Joe Burrow is healthy the whole season, we can pencil them in for probably 10 or 11 wins.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow hasn't seen a full healthy season in 3 years. Like, he's constantly dealing with problems. There's going to be lingering effects. We might see him be a different version of himself. I think he's going to be good in supporting the fantasy weapons around him, but relying on him on a season-long bet like this feels like a fool's errand. I'm going to go under. I also understand that I'm looking at this through Steelers-colored glasses, so bear with me on that. Once again, thank you so much, Luke and Chris, for joining me. Evan, I'd say thank you, but we text every day. I hope everybody enjoyed listening. This has been another episode of the Fantasy Football RPG Podcast. We're coming up on episode 100, so be sure to like, subscribe, share with a friend, share with your mom, share with your dad, uncle, grandpa, whatever. Grandpa, I hope you're listening to this. Bye-bye.